Hello, and welcome to Literary Notes, a podcast by the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library. I'm your producer, Nathan Ureta. Emerald City Comic-Con starts today, and while it might have started as a convention for comic book geeks, fans of all sorts of arts and entertainment now come to Seattle to celebrate their passions. I've been holding on to this interview from our archives for just this moment. Sci-fi writer Timothy Zahn is known for his books set in the Star Wars universe. His trilogy about Grand Admiral Thrawn kickstarted a slew of Star Wars novels and comics known as the Star Wars Expanded Universe back in the 90s. In 2008, he dropped by our studios to talk with library volunteer Jeff Cavanaugh. They discuss his novel Allegiance, a Star Wars story set between the original movie and its sequel, as well as his myriad other works. Here's their conversation.
I'm your host, Jeff Cavanaugh, and with me in studio today is Hugo Award-winning author Timothy Zahn. His new book is Star Wars Allegiance. It's out from Del Rey Books. It's $25.95 in a hardcover, and it's just come out 2 days ago, as a matter of fact. And let's welcome him to the studio. Good afternoon. Welcome again. This is your second time here,
Yes.
and we very much appreciate your taking the time, especially on short notice, to come and talk about your new book. This is your 8th Star Wars book?
Yes, 8th Star Wars book. 31st novel overall.
Your 31st book,
Yes.
And your 8th Star Wars book. I know we probably covered this the first time you were here, but tell us a little bit how you fell into doing Star Wars books back in 1991.
That's when the first came out. Yeah, fell in is the proper term. Going on way behind the scenes, things I had no idea about at the time. Back in 1988, Lou Aronica, who was head of Bantam Spectra, wrote a letter to Lucasfilm suggesting that since Lucasfilm hadn't done anything with Star Wars in 5 years, that Bantam would like to undertake a continuation of the saga, picking up after Return of the Jedi, where no other authors had been allowed to write at that stage. About a year later, somebody at Lucasfilm, I think it was Lucy Wilson, found the letter in an unanswered correspondence stack, and they discussed it, got back to Lou, and said, let's talk contract and find us an author. So the Bantam editors got together, made a short list of authors in their stable that they thought could handle Star Wars, sent the list and samples of our writing out to Lucasfilm, and they picked mine as the one they thought stylistically fit Star Wars the best.
Now, who else was in that list, if you don't mind?
I don't know who else
you
was
don't?
in it. No, they've never told me, and I have not asked.
No idea who you were competing against?
No idea, and I suspect some of them may have wound up being offered future Star Wars books.
Okay.
So it could have been any of several other people.
Troy Denning or...
I'm not sure Troy was writing at that point, but probably more likely Kathy Tyers, Kevin Anderson, people like that. But that's all speculation. I don't know who else was on the list.
Sure.
So I got this completely out of the blue Monday afternoon, 4 o'clock phone call from my agent. And I still remember his phrase. He said, "Tim, we have a very interesting offer here." So we discussed it for about an hour on the phone. I told him I'd give him a yes or no the next day. Then I walked away and panicked. For about 24 hours, well, more like 12 probably. The idea of getting to write Star Wars was exciting and terrifying at the same time, because it gave me the opportunity to fail in front of a much huger audience than had ever even heard my name before. Well, by the next day, I had enough of an idea that I thought, okay, I can get a 3-book story out of this story arc, and I went ahead and accepted the project.
So were you given an approximate plot or story to work with, or were you just told to write something?
I was basically given just 2 rules up front. One, I was to start 3 to 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and we set it later at 5,
Mm-hmm.
and I could use anybody who had not died in the movies. And that was basically it.
I'm presuming you weren't allowed to kill anybody off.
I'm sure if I had tried, that would have gotten a no as well. And various things in the outline in the final book, all of the books so far, have had to be changed as Lucasfilm has said, okay, you can't do this. Right. But it's much easier to do it that way than to be given stuff, you need these plot points in, or something like that. It's much easier for the writer and much more fun for the writer to be able to come up with his or her own story and then tweak it according to where you've hit the boundaries that Lucasfilm has.
So you're the groundbreaker. I mean, aside from Alan Dean Foster writing Splinter of the Mind's Eye back in the, early 80s or late 70s.
It came out, yeah, I think it was right after A New Hope, because it was supposedly the idea for the next movie if Lucas didn't have much budget.
Right.
And of course, since A New Hope broke right through the ceiling, he had enough budget to do something different, which came out as Empire Strikes Back. But it was kind of his cheaper version, I think, that Foster wrote up. Right. There were also the 3 Han Solo novels and 3 Lando Calrissian novels, and there had been a series of Star Wars comics that Marvel had done. But all of those took place either during the middle part of the movies or before A New Hope with the Solo and Calrissian novels. Yep. And no one had been allowed to go after Return of the Jedi and use all the major characters from the movies. Right. So this was completely unexplored territory.
And you were the groundbreaker.
I was the one who got to do that.
How did that feel?
As I said, exciting and scary at the same time.
So those 3 books were then followed by a number of other writers taking the story in a number of different ways.
Yes.
And you sort of took a break for a little bit from those, and then had the Hand of Thrawn, those 2 books. And then Outbound Flight?
Outbound Flight. Actually, Survivor's Quest came out first. Those 2 are interesting because they were 2 separate offers that I combined into kind of one project. The history of that is, I don't remember when exactly, but after the Hand of Thrawn duology, Lucasfilm and Del Rey, who now had the license, approached me and said they were doing a Han and Leia book called Tatooine Ghost and wanted to know if I would like to do a Luke and Mara book. And I'm going to say no to a Luke and Mara book. So I said yes, and no, actually, I'm sorry, I've got it backwards. They came to me and asked me to do Outbound Flight, and I said yes to that. And then that was originally supposed to come out between episodes 2 and 3, where it actually fits in the chronology. And then for some reason, it got postponed rescheduled until after Revenge of the Sith. So I put it kind of on the shelf. And meantime, they offered me the Luke and Mara story. So I now had 2 projects, one on the shelf, one ready to be written. And it occurred to me, I can link these. I can make Survivor's Quest kind of the end of the Outbound Flight story, where you see what happened to it. And then in a year, as it wound up being 2 years, later, when Outbound Flight comes out, the readers can see where this started and how it got to where everything was in Outbound Flight. So prequels were the big thing in Star Wars at that time. I thought, okay, look, if George can do it, yeah, I can do it too.
And if they let you, so much the better.
Yeah, so we linked them. So it was actually, I was working on both outlines and getting both approved at the same time because they were one story in 2 widely 50-year separated parts.
So let's talk about Star Wars Allegiance, which you had mentioned happens just a little bit of time after the events in the first film.
Yeah, we keep it a little bit vague because there is a Splinter of the Mind's Eye and the Marvel Comics in that slot. And so rather than set it as, 2 months after Yavin, which would probably run into the Marvel strips, we made it a bit more vague. It's probably closer to a year after the Battle of Yavin. What we have is Luke is all gung-ho for the rebellion, and probably Leia as well. Han is still with them, but very ambivalent and rather resents the fact they kind of consider him part of the rebellion. He's never made a decision on that and not sure he wants to. Meanwhile, we have Mara Jade, who is at the height of her authority as the Emperor's hand. And thrown into this mix, we have 5 enlistee stormtroopers. At this point, they're not all clones. They are a mixture of clones and enlisted other people. That's actually been established before the book was written by Lucasfilm. We have 5 stormtroopers who are becoming very disillusioned with what they are doing because they joined to promote justice and order, and they're being given strange orders. And it's sort of like a German soldier under Nazi Germany suddenly realizing that this isn't what I signed up for.
Right.
And then a situation, I won't describe it, it's early on in the book, forces them to flee. And they sort of become almost like a combination of Zorro and the Fugitive. That's how I think about it. They're on the run because they are technically deserters, and yet they find themselves, our job was to administer justice. We see injustice here. Let's deal with it. So we've got kind of three responses to a situation of, well, obviously evil, the evil empire. You've got the rebellion, which is going to try to overthrow it. We have the stormtroopers who are really just trying to leave and let it go away from it. And you have Mara, who is working within it, idealistically, to fix the problems she sees.
Right. So
it's actually almost committing literature there.
How dare you?
Oh, yes.
In Star Wars literature, no. So with this book, you're really kind of giving a face and a humanization to these faceless stormtroopers who, in the films anyway, are literally just these white armor-clad nobodies who run around, get shot, and shoot at people, and they're not people. They don't appear to be people in the films.
Yes. And of course, in real life, you've got good soldiers and bad soldiers on both sides of any conflict. So I wanted to humanize them, and it's as I said, we all face the same kinds of problem, whether it's your nation, your government, your corporation, your company, your school system, your renters association. You'll eventually come up in a situation where you don't agree with what the powers that be are doing, and we all faced with the question, what do I do about that?
Right.
And this way I got to put their side of it as well as the rebellions and Mara's.
Now, you did, in your first three Star Wars books, sort of begin to put a little bit of a face and a person to Imperial personnel, to commanders. But this is the first time that we've actually had the lower level ground pounder types,
right,
who are the ones, the trigger pullers, if you will.
Well, the first time I've done it yet. I don't know. I haven't kept up with all the Star Wars books, but I suspect it's the first time the Empire's soldiers have gotten kind of humanized.
Well, I think, was it Michael Stackpole kind of?
Oh, Baron Fell, yes, that probably. Mike probably started that then,
right,
with Baron Fell, definitely.
But wasn't that more the pilots?
Yeah, he was a pilot. That was a pilot force, and I think it was mostly just. Yeah, I suppose the pilots are more the elite. Yeah, I'm still doing the first ground pounders.
Right. So what other Star Wars projects either do you have already in the works, or are you sort of dreaming about that you'd love to write?
I have not been approached to do any more Star Wars books at this point. I don't know whether they've just got a full schedule or whether they're happier with the other authors they've got or what's going on. I figure at this point I've written probably 1 million words in the Star Wars universe between the novels and the short stories I've done. So if Allegiance is my last book, I've had a good run, and I'm content with it. However, if they do offer me another one, I do have one in mind that's kind of a sequel to Allegiance. So possibly some of the continued adventures of the 5 stormtroopers.
Right on.
With probably a little bit, maybe a lot of Thrawn mixed in.
Excellent.
So that could be a crowd pleaser.
Now let me ask you this: I've enjoyed every single Star Wars book that I've read from Splinter of the Mind's Eye on. There has not been one that I did not enjoy. But do you personally feel that there's a chance that they're starting to slice the mythology a little bit thin, that there are so many stories that are happening within a really limited number of years? I mean, it's starting to seem like Star Trek, where there's so many books and so many adventures. There's the animated adventures, there's the television show, the original canon, and there's all these books, and it just seems like it's getting sliced thinner and thinner. And do you think Star Wars is going that way too?
That's always the danger. The problem is if you try going too far ahead and you lose all the movie characters, you don't get as much reader interest. So they're kind of being forced to continue on. They can push the limits. I think the legacy of the Force now, what is that, 40 years or so after Yavin or so. Fortunately, we don't know how long people live in the Star Wars universe. So maybe it's like Aragorn, who is 80 years old in Lord of the Rings. Maybe they're long-lived. But yeah, that's always the danger. And the danger for the writer is, as I said, I had a brand new open field when I started Heir to the Empire. Now there's so many people digging holes in it. Not only do you have to be careful not to fall into somebody else's hole, it's hard to find a place to dig that hasn't been touched.
Right.
One of the reasons I picked the era I did for Allegiance, they offered me 2 or 3 different places in the timeline. And I picked this one partly because there were so few other books and so fewer things in the that part of the history. Also, of course, I wanted to see a young Mara. I'd just done a young Thrawn with Outbound Flight, and I thought a young Mara or an early appearance of Mara is something that'd be fun to do as well.
Yeah, I noticed that when Brian Herbert and Kevin Anderson went way back in the Dune series, you really lost something because even though it's a very interesting story, how the beginnings of the machine wars happened that kept getting mentioned throughout the Dune books, it just sort of fell flat, at least to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the stories, but you don't have those familiar characters. So I mean, I understand that you can't go too far forward or too far ahead, or too far ahead or too far back. But at the same time, where do you draw the line?
It's a good question. It's fortunately not a decision I have to make. But yeah, that's a danger. You'll slice it too thin. You'll oversaturate the market. You'll wind up doing the same things over and over because you've done a lot of the stories that can be written. Right. And any series, whether it's Star Wars, Star Trek, Buffy, runs into that same question. What can we do that's different now?
I'm just wondering if there will actually come a point where they will say, we're done.
As long as people are buying them, I suspect not. Now, if the TV series that Lucas is talking about gets off the ground, which I understand would be set between episodes 3 and 4 in the consolidation of the Empire era, you could probably kick off a bunch of stories in that era, especially if you've got TV characters now to link to.
Right.
I mean, with a book like, even with Dune, as you say, well, it was also a movie, but even a book, if you've got familiar characters and you try going too far afield and losing them, you lose something. It's even worse when you're doing a media spin-off and people have the expectation of seeing Han, Luke, Leia, Obi-Wan, Anakin in their story. However, if you've got a TV series where you've got Obi-Wan Fred or something there, and you can do stories about Obi-Wan Fred, you've still got the connection there, and you can revitalize the whole book series. Right. So if that gets going, I think the books will revitalize as well.
Right on. Do you think you would consider doing any sort of work on the television program if you were approached?
Let me put it this way. It's about a 10-hour drive to Lucasfilm from where I live. If I was offered something there, I could do it in 9.
Well, I don't hold back. Tell us how you really feel.
Right.
Have you written for screen or for television?
I would like to. I think a lot of my books would translate well to screen because they tend to be visually oriented as opposed to something like Dune where there's so much going on in the politics and the minds that it does not translate to visuals very well. I think my stuff would work very well, but it's hard to break into Hollywood. They seem to think they've got better ideas. Most of the time, if you look at the movies that come out, they don't. But try to explain that to them.
Well, maybe you just need to get a screenplay together from one of your stories and go
That's
from
a
there.
possibility. It is hard to break in. My agent has discouraged me from wasting energy on this many times over the past years, simply because it's most likely a waste of time, whereas I've got a contract for the next 2 or 3 books.
Right. Speaking of other books,
Nice segue.
Yes, exactly. Speaking of other books, besides your prodigious work in Star Wars, you also have had a couple other books come out since we last talked. Night Train to Rigel is one of them, and The Green and the Gray is another. Let's talk a little bit about these. Let's start with Night Train to Rigel first. This book list called it a highly readable thriller in space opera trappings. So give us a little bit of background as far as where this one came from and what you wanted to do with it.
The means of travel around the galaxy is what's called the quadrail. It is a series of tubes and trains within the tubes. You go that sit out in the outer system. So the one in our solar system's out past Jupiter. You take a torch liner from Earth out there to the quadrail station. You buy a ticket, you get on the train, and you head off down the tube. The trains never hit more than about 60 miles an hour, which you can tell by accelerometers aboard. However, when you finally pull it in your destination, it turns out you've been going a light year per minute. So the whole quadrail system is run by these creatures called spiders. They are 7-legged globes with 7 legs that different sizes and such are conductors. There are drone station masters and such, and they run the whole system. My lead character, Frank Compton, gets pulled into a situation. He's asked to solve a problem for the spiders, and he winds up finding an enemy that's kind of been lurking and starting a quiet war over the last couple of centuries, and winds up finding kind of in the middle of the whole thing. I should also mention that this was originally a standalone, but my editor liked it enough that he wanted a series out of it. So it's now, I've got contracts for 2 more books. I'm editing one right now. It come out around September or October, called The Third Lynx, Lynx. And then the next one I think is going to be called Odd Girl Out. So it's kind of a film noir in space type of feeling that I'm going for.
And I understand you have a bit of an excerpt from this that you would.
Yeah, I can read the opening part to the story.
And I should mention again, this is called Night Train to Rigel, and this is Timothy Zahn reading an excerpt of his book.
He was leaning against the side of an autocab by the curb as I walked through the door and atmosphere curtain of the new Palace Towers into the chilly Manhattan night air. He was short and thin with no facial hair and wore a dark brown overcoat with a lighter brown shirt and slacks beneath it. Probably no more than 17 or 18 years old, I estimated, the sort of person you wouldn't normally give a second look to if you passed him on the walkway. Which was why I gave him a very careful second look as I headed down the imported Beldic marble steps toward street level. I had no doubt there were plenty of nondescript people wandering the streets of New York this December evening, but their proper place was the nondescript parts of the city, not here in the habitats of the rich and powerful. There was already one person out of his proper social position in this neighborhood, me, and it would be unreasonable to expect 2 such exceptions at the same time at the same place. He watched me silently from beneath droopy eyelids, his arms folded across his chest, his hands hidden from view. A beggar or mugger should be moving toward me at this point, I knew, while an honest citizen would be politely stepping out of my way. This character was doing neither. I found myself studying those folded arms, wondering what he might have in his hands, and wishing mightily that Western Alliance Intelligence hadn't revoked my carry permit when they'd cashiered me 14 months earlier. I was within 3 steps of the kid when he finally stirred, his half-lidded eyes opening, his forehead creasing in concentration. "Frank Compton," he said in a gravelly voice. It had been a statement, not a question. "That's right," I confirmed. "Do I know you?" A half-smile touched his lips as he unfolded his arms. I tensed, but both hands were empty. His left hand dropped limply to his side, his right floundered a bit and then found its way into his overcoat's side pocket. It was still there as he slid almost leisurely off the side of the autocab and crumpled into a heap on the sidewalk, his eyes staring unseeingly into the night sky. I dropped to a crouch beside the body and looked around. Carefully, I reached past his limp hand into his overcoat pocket and poked. There was nothing there but a thin plastic folder of the sort used for carrying credit tags or cash sticks. I pulled it out, angled it toward the marquee light from the new palace behind me, and flipped it open. There was a single item inside, a shimmery copper-edged ticket for a seat on transgalactic quadrail number 339216, due to depart Terra Station at 7:55 p.m. on December 27th, 2084, 7 days away. The travel designation was third class. The seat listed was number 22 in car 15. The destination was the Rigel star system and the Earth colony of Yandro. I looked at the dead face still pointed skyward. I have a pretty good memory for faces, but this one wasn't ringing any bells. Shifting my attention back to the ticket, I skipped down to the passenger information section at the bottom and found myself looking at a digitized photo of myself. I stared at it, the back of my neck starting to tingle. The photo was mine, the name and ID number printed below it were mine, and if the thumbprint wasn't mine, it was a damn close copy.
Right on. So that definitely sets up a noir feel.
Yes.
Well, I can't wait to get home and like I say, I had no idea that had come out, so I just picked it up. The other one that I have in front of me here is entitled "The Green and the Gray," and this, if I understand correctly, is set in a much nearer future.
Right, it's present-day New York City.
Right. Although I seem to recall that little bit you read was also starting off in New York City.
Yes.
But you're from Oregon.
Well, I like visiting Manhattan. We don't stay in New York for Night Train. It just starts out there.
Okay.
But Green and the Gray takes place in Manhattan.
Tell us a little bit about that one.
What we have is two groups of people, the Greens and the Grays, who came to Earth from a war, refugees from a war about 50 years earlier. Came through Ellis Island. The Greens settled on Manhattan. The Grays, with assistance from one of the Ellis Island people, the Grays, who arrived a little later, settled in the Bronx and Queens and that area. They've been unaware of each other for the last 50 years, and now they've discovered that they're here. Oh, I didn't mention they were refugees from opposite sides of a war. And one faction on each side very much wants to restart the war. The Greens have various psychic-type abilities. The Grays have some very interesting high-tech stuff. And we wind up with a human couple, Roger and Carolyn, who get kind of stuck in the middle when a young girl is handed off to them by a bleeding man who then disappears. So we have the potential for a war that would make 9/11 look like, a soccer match that could devastate the whole city. And we have a couple of humans, a police detective who gets kind of in on the side, trying to figure out how to resolve this problem and stop the war before it happens.
And the girl is sort of the crux of preventing...
Melentha, the girl, is the crux. I said one faction of each side wants to start the war. Another faction of each side wants to keep the war from happening by killing Melentha, the 12-year-old girl.
As a sacrificial...
It's more than that, but yes, it's it for reasons which become clear later on that they want to sacrifice her, and Roger and Carolyn don't want to let her die.
So these aliens came to Earth...
They look very human, look perfectly human, but
So
they would
they're-
not pass medical exams, no.
But this was back 50-something years ago,
I
you
think it
said?
was like 1929 when they came through, 50,
Okay.
70 years ago.
So they just sort of emigrated with the Irish and the
The Greens,
others that
the
were-
Greens had a shuttle that kind of buried itself at the base of Ellis Island, and they bored a hole and came up into the station where they were found by this young clerk who basically helped them out. The Grays, who can climb metal and just the outside of metal, Spider-Man-ish, and can also kind of cloak to where if they hold still, they look like bubbles or something. They're not particularly visible, along with their high tech.
kind of chameleon-like.
Like chameleon-like. They simply came near a passing ship, climbed up the outside, and mixed in with the passengers as they were coming in.
What gave you the idea for this story?
Who knows? No, I mean, these things just kind of pop into your head, and I don't really remember the origin of that one. But that was one my editor wasn't quite sure what to do with, because it was considerably different than my usual stuff. But I was very much enjoyed writing it, and maybe it'll pick up some steam someplace along the line. I think it would make a great movie as well.
Absolutely. I got a feeling that your physics background probably had something to do with Night Train to Rigel, as far as the actual technology and the sort of gee whiz gizmos behind it.
Yes.
What made you stop working on your physics thesis?
The short answer is I wasn't very good at it. The longer answer, that's a retrospective thing, seen from behind. The longer answer is I'd started writing in 1975 as a hobby. Did it for 3 years before, writing in my spare time before I sold a story, and was really enjoying doing this when in, I guess it was July of '79, my advisor died suddenly of a heart attack, leaving me with a project we'd been working on for about 5 years off and on, basically 5 years, I think, 5, 6 years, and was not working, and as one of the other professors pointed out to me later on, never was going to work. So no one was going to pick it up and continue with it. And they told me I could start a new project, a new professor. I think they were saying 8 to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, and I could probably get my doctorate in a couple of years. Mm-hmm. And I tried. I started, worked a semester with a new professor, got into the beginnings of a new project, and discovered a couple of things. One, it was very stressful to try to do this, so stressful that even when in my spare time, I couldn't write. I just didn't have the emotional energy. And two, that I liked writing a lot more than I liked doing the physics. Mm-hmm. So in January of 1980, I just quit the department and started writing full-time. My wife and I had been married a grand total of, I think, 4 months. Let's see, 4 or 5 months. My in-laws were thrilled, to say the least, but they did come around eventually.
And it was only 4 years after that you won your Hugo.
Yes, yeah. As I said, they eventually came around
for Cascade Point.
Cascade Point novella, right?
Yep. I really like that story.
For any of your listeners who want to become writers, bear in mind I started writing full time in 1980. I started making a living in 1984.
Right. Yeah,
it's not overnight.
No. Yeah, I've taken that story from several authors and really made a point of keep your day job whenever possible.
Or a working spouse who believes in you.
Right. So who are you reading that is really catching your eye right now?
To be honest, I can't read fiction anymore. It's too much like work. I find myself analyzing plots, analyzing characters, checking how I would do the dialogue. It's just not relaxation anymore. So
Really?
What I read now is nonfiction.
Uh-huh.
I've been mostly reading World War II stuff, just getting little bits and pieces of corners I'd never heard about before.
Are you keeping up with your physics?
I try to keep up a little bit with that, but it changes so often. It's safer just to go a couple of 100 years or 100 years into the future, invent a quadrail, and not have to worry about what exactly nanotech is doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Who would you say were the authors that back in the day inspired you to write science fiction?
I actually picked 4 specific writers when I started this career. I'd read everybody from Paul Anderson to Roger Zelazny, so I had a big expanse of knowledge and such in the field. But I picked 4 specific authors for their various strengths. One, I wanted to try to do science as well as Larry Niven. Mm-hmm. Secondly, for character development and dialogue, I looked at Theodore Sturgeon as my goal. Mm-hmm. For plot twists, the sardonic humor type of thing, Keith Laumer, the Retief series, and some other very good books. Yep. And then for just sheer tension and plot twists, I picked the non-science fiction thriller writer Alistair MacLean, Guns of Navarone and Where Eagles Dare and such books as that. So those were my ideals to aim for.
But when you were younger, growing up, who were the authors that really just grabbed you?
Oh, let's see. I read a lot, library, until I had enough money to buy my own. I remember liking a lot of the Andre Norton, some of the Heinlein juveniles. I remember two of the earliest books I remember are one by Donald Wollheim, I think Secret of the Martian Moons, and one I refound a few years ago called Assignment in Space with Rip Foster. that actually held up very, very well.
Oh, that rings a bell.
Yeah, I mean, the science actually was good. Having read it recently, having been a science major, I was surprised that it is actually an intelligently written and scientifically accurate book for young adults.
Yeah, it's kind of sad how some of the old books just don't. They're
Yes.
great for the nostalgia and they're great for their stories, but the tech just doesn't hold up.
Yeah. Which is why that's the danger with trying to pin your story too much on the technology, like a lot of the 50s writers did. It gets superseded so fast. The fast example is the Venus Equilateral stories, where they are on a space station and a lot of their problems are, I remember one problem, they don't have computers because there were no computers when he was writing these. And I remember one where they're trying to locate something and they basically make a curved, like a French curve type of thing that they can align. It'll follow, track the orbit for them, and they can align their telescope. Well, now by the time we actually get stations out there, they'll have computers the size of your watch that'll run these things, or smaller. So it's one of those. It's based on the technology, and the technology has way superseded it. So you're right; it's nostalgia or a historical type of reading only.
I mean, I can read the old Heinlein juveniles, and just thinking, I want to say it was Between Planets, where he has a mobile phone in the pommel of his saddle as he's riding his horse, and that was supposed to be just this crazy, far-fetched future thing. And come on, we have mobile phones the size, well, like you said, of your watch, that everybody takes for granted now. So.
I was just thinking the other day, I think when I was at the ALA a couple of weeks ago here in Seattle, and there was some kind of photo op, and everybody who didn't have a camera lifted their phone. And I was thinking, 10 years ago, if you had told people a photo op, people have their phones out to record it, they would have looked at you like you were nuts. 20 years ago, they would have locked you up. But it's just the technology. I think one reason science fiction in general is declining in the book trade. Fantasy is going great, but a lot of the classical type science fiction is still on the decline. And one of the theories as to why is we're living in a science fiction world in many ways. The sense of awe can be satisfied by your Xbox or your phone that you can bring a movie down into now.
Right.
If you really want to watch on the screen that size.
Exactly. Now, I remember the last time we were here, we talked about a number of your older books, and one of them, or one series that we did not discuss at all, and that I have yet to actually find, is the Dragonback books.
Ah, that's my young adult series.
Right.
They're out and running. You may have to look in the young adult section of the bookstore.
I didn't
or the
see
library.
them, I guess. I'll have to go find
okay.
them. But I don't normally shop in the young adult section, so I'll have to go
That's
look for them.
yeah. That's why they tend to be missed. I think some places just I think Powell's down in Portland. I was just down there, has a lot of them in there, just the regular adult science fiction as well. Yeah, that's my young adult series. I'm pitching a couple more series of young adult books, various places. But that one is 6 books. Number 5 comes out this May, I think, end of May.
Well, give us a little bit about that.
Okay, Dragonback is science fiction despite its name. We have two races, symbiotic races, called the Kada and the Shantine. They are heading to human space, refugees from a war against an alien people called the Volagua, who have a weapon called the Death that will go right through hull plates, defenses of any sort, and kill anything it touches. And they are coming to human space trying to find a world where they can settle away from these enemies. The advance team, 4 ships, reaches the planet they've been negotiating with a group of aliens for, and are ambushed by unknown mercenaries and the Volagua, who have the death, because they are killed with the death weapon, who shouldn't be here at all. The one survivor is a Kada called Dracos. He looks like a small dragon. The thing about Kada is they are a symbiotic race. Every 6 hours, they have to go 2-dimensional and go onto a host's back, arms, and legs, or they die. So the Shantine can be their host. Not very many others can. They've only known a couple of host species during their lifetimes. And the wrecked ship. Dracos is the only survivor. And a young boy, 14-year-old boy, who's on the run, comes into the ship. Now, Jack Morgan was orphaned at age 3, raised by his uncle Virgil, who was a con man, safecracker, and all-around thief, who has therefore raised Jack to be likewise. Uncle Virgil has died, leaving a copy of his personality in the ship's computer called Uncle Verge. And Jack has been on his own for a while. He comes upon this ship, and Dracos, in the last throes of life, discovers that Jack can be a host to him. So the first book, Dragon and Thief, is the effort by Jack and Dracos to figure out what happened, why Jack has been framed, and get him out from under this charge. In the process, they wind up getting into the middle of a vast scheme that ultimately is the group that is going to try to destroy the incoming fleet of refugees, Shantine and Kadar refugees. So each book, the refugees are 6 months behind the advance team. So each book is 1 month of this period. As we count down, Jack and Dracos trying to find out who the mercenaries are who've allied themselves with the Valagua, and figure out a way to stop it. Because part of it is Jack doesn't trust Starforce not to have been infiltrated with whoever is doing this. And we don't know where the rendezvous is between the refugee fleet and the advance force. That was a secret place. The knowledge was hidden in safes inside the advance team ships. We can't simply get Starforce aboard, go to that rendezvous, and intercept the refugees. We've got to find that spot before the bad guys find it and get to it.
Right. And so we're already 4 books into that, and the 5th one is coming out soon.
Yes, they're Dragon and Thief, Dragon and Soldier, Dragon and Slave, Dragon and Judge. No, wait a minute.
And Herdsman.
Herdsman, then Dragon and Judge. That comes out. And then the final one I'm working on now is Dragon and Liberator.
Now, there is another book that I saw on the shelf. It's in hardback. I want to say it was a black collar.
Yes, the Judas Solution.
Right. Another one. You've been busy. Knocking out Star Wars books and all these others.
The Black Collar was my first book, published in 1983. And I followed it up with a sequel called The Backlash Mission, and I think it was 85 or 86. The setup at the end of that one called for a third book, and I kind of got sidetracked and never got back to it. And there was always the question, once you've lost momentum on a series, it's hard to get that back. It's hard to get a publisher to be interested in it. So I kind of put it on a back burner. Then Baen Books, Jim Baen, who had recently bought the reprint rights to the Cobras and brought them out in an omnibus edition, asked if I would sell the Black Collars to him. And through my agent, I told him, I can't sell you just the first 2, but it's because it's not complete, but I'd be happy to sell you 2 and an original. And he went for that, so he brought out the first 2 in an omnibus and then the third one. So it's kind of Black Collar 1 and Black Collar 2 involving 3 books. But the Judas Solution finally finishes off the series where I'd kind of planned for it to go.
So explain a little bit about the backstory of the Black Collars. Okay,
the Black Collars were my low-tech warriors. Cobras are the high-tech. Black Collars were the low-tech. They were ninja-like martial arts type. They used low-tech weapons, nunchucks, shuriken, slingshots, all low-metal, no-energy sort of thing, because the enemy, the Rickrill, use that as how you sense weapons. Your metal detectors, power source detectors, so we go with the low-tech. They had their martial arts trained and also had a drug called Backlash that had enhanced their reflexes and speed. So they actually could take on Rickrill hand-to-hand and beat them. Earth lost the war. The book picks up about 26 years after Earth and the Democratic Alliance have been conquered. We have a young man, an agent for the Earth Resistance, who is sent out to a world to find a secret piece of information that was hidden in the archives on this world of Plinry. It appears that during the war, 5 Nova-class warships had been hidden, preparing to bring them out once the enemy lines passed and play havoc behind the lines, only something had happened to the crew and they never were activated. We now know that this is where the information on their location is. So Alan Kane goes out there and in the process kind of winds up activating a black-collar group that have veterans that have been waiting for just this chance. And the story goes on from there.
And then the second book was sort of a sequel to that.
Second, right. It's again, like most of my Star Wars book, kind of a single story in 3 volumes.
Right. So the new book, the Judas Solution, picks up right after the Backlash
mission, yes.
And where does that go? If you don't mind sharing a little bit of it.
How can I put this? The end of the Judas Solution has the human Galway, who is a prefect government agent. One of the things that the Rickroll do is a loyalty condition. They're people. They're human subjects, so they cannot rebel. The ones that are going to be in government or law enforcement are loyalty conditions. It takes a couple of weeks to do this. And they cannot fight back against the Rickroll. So one of our opponents, the Black Collar's opponents, is the prefect of Plinry named Galway, who is actually a very good man, but he can't rebel. I mean, he wants to stop them to protect his people, which is part of his job and also part of his desire. So at the end of the Backlash mission, he has been recruited by the Rickroll to find a way to use Lathe and the Black Collars. And so he has come up with a way of getting the Black Collars to work for the Rickroll without knowing it. And this is his scheme.
I see. Well, you've had a busy few years since you were in here last. A couple Star Wars novels, at least 3 other, plus the young adults. You said you had a couple other young adult series that you were trying to pitch. What else have you got sort of on the back burner there?
Well, I've got one that's called Black Cat Crossing that I've been pitching to Tor for over a year, and they keep promising they'll make an offer on it and then get sidetracked with other stuff. They've been sick over there a lot the last 6 months or so, just various viruses going through the office and such. So I imagine we're going to make a deal for that fairly soon. There's another one that I've got Wizards of the Coast interested in. In fact, I talked to the editor today, called Spirit Master. It's more of a fantasy thing. Actually, it picks up one of the worlds in my book, Triplet, where you have a society where you can invoke different types of spirits and trap them into various objects. So, for example, if you want running water in your home, you trap a Nixie in a tank, Nixie being a water spirit. If you want hot water, you also trap a fire brat underneath the tank. And then the fire there, you will have hot running water. So this is their technology, is using the spirit, trapped spirits. So I'm pitching that one. I've got a couple of other ideas. Again, Night Train to Rigel is being made into a series, so I've got 2 books on contract with Tor, and if the editor is happy with them, we'll probably get a couple more. I've got at least 3 or 4 more books worth of ideas where I'd like that to go. And there's always a chance that the Star Wars people will approach me again. You never know.
Right. Black Cat Crossing, what's that one going to be about?
You have a small town out in the west that's kind of near, well, how do you say near? There's a world called Carolon, or it's a big island in an ocean on some other dimensional world of some sort. And they used to take craft between their world and Earth. About 100 years or so ago, there was an explosion, and one of their transports that consist of long tubes fastened together, the thing blew up, and it got frozen in between. So you've got, in Black Cat Crossing, you have 8 or 9 ends of tubes. You get into one, it goes down or goes into a different spot in Carolon. Widely varying spots. So the tubes are invisible unless you have the proper equipment to see them, and you can't be opened or touched without the proper equipment. Carolon has a group of 3 or 4 different factions. We have Crystal Island, where you have the high-tech people, the ones who create all the high-tech stuff. They have also the Guardians, who have implanted equipment, who can also open and close the tubes. You have Spire, which is a city-state, Cairn, which is partially underground, and you've got farmers of Grange, and you've got a place called the Silent Mountain. The other thing, aside from the high-tech people of Crystal Island, is you have people called gifties that have certain psychic powers, manipulation of earth, air, fire, or water. The catch is that they need to be touching a piece of something called booster stone to activate, to be able to use their power, their gift. So in Black Cat Crossing, we have a guardian and his family who protect the ends of the tubes. I mean, they're used for diplomatic purposes. You can get into the tube at Spire, walk 50 feet, get out of that one at Black Cat Crossing, walk 4 feet to the next one, and come out in Crystal Island, a couple hundred miles away in your own world. So they're used for diplomatic sorts of purposes. Sure. You have the guardians watching this. You also have the exiled leader of Spire and his daughter, and his wife and her mother may or may not be alive back in Spire. It was usurped. We have a woman who once was high in the councils of Spire and Cairn and is no longer welcome at either place. And you have a couple of other odd individuals. And the first book, it concerns an assassin who wants to get to Black Cat Crossing and intercept a courier who's on his way there and doesn't care who he has to kill to get to him.
So is that first book written?
No. I've got the first 3 or 4 chapters done and an outline. I know about where the series is going to go. So the 4 major characters will be this daughter, the princess, the guardian's son and his sister, and a boy who shows up in town. His mother is going to be working in the city, and they've got a free housing in Black Cat Crossing. His father has recently died. And within the first 3 chapters, he meets Marissa, the princess, and she discovers something odd about him, that he seemed to be able to see one of the tubes briefly, which isn't supposed to happen. So there's something odd about him. He's a normal Earth person, but something is happening there too. And there's a large black cat that wanders the streets of Black Cat Crossing. And we don't know exactly what's going on with that.
Well, you do.
Well, I do.
One thing that I wanted to go back and touch on, as you mentioned, the black collar being your low-tech sort of resistance fighters versus the Cobras, who are the high-tech. That was actually my first introduction to your writing, was the Cobra books, and that, of course, just grabbed me and wouldn't let go. Sort of cybernetic warriors with their muscles enhanced with servo motors and lasers in their legs and fingers, and
programmed combat computer with reflexes built in, so you can bounce up against the ceiling and bounce down again without killing yourself.
Right. As sort of a resistance against alien invaders.
Right.
I really did enjoy how not only you described the initiation and the process to turn a normal person into one of these, but what happens if they wash out of the program. They've got all of their enhanced everything, but they're not allowed to continue for whatever reason, psychological, and what happens to them. And, and you get into a sort of megalomaniacal Superman complex in some of these characters, and it's really a very interesting story.
And also, one of the things, whenever you do a superhero or a Superman, you've got to have some kind of weakness or downside, otherwise it gets boring. And just to mention to the readers that the problems with the Cobras is they have health problems because of the implanted equipment. They tend to have shorter lifespans, not from combat injuries, but because they've got anemia. The laminae on their bones affects their red blood creation. They have arthritis and such, so they have shorter lifespans. This is the downside to having been a superhero in your youth.
Do you envision any more Cobra stories?
I would like to. I've got when Bain bought the first 3 to reprint them, I started thinking again. I've got probably at least 3 more books, maybe 5 that I'd like to tell in that era. The problem is, before we could actually get much going, Jim Bain passed away, and my agent probably doesn't really want to see what happens with it before we try to pitch anything long term to them.
Right.
But yeah, I could do another 3 to 5 Cobra books.
Really?
Yeah.
There's definitely much more material to be mined, but really another Another 3 over books.
Write to Baen Books. Tell them you want to see them.
Absolutely.
They have been very good. Baen is one of the, because they're a small publisher, they are very good about listening to and responding to their readers.
Well, I've always been very happy with Baen. I mean, there's very few Baen books that I will pick up that I don't enjoy, even if it's an author I've never heard of. And there have been a number that I picked up one as an ebook because they happened to have it online.
Yeah.
And then had to go and buy the actual paper book because I just enjoyed it that much. Yeah. Are any of your books out on the net as ebooks the way Baen does some of their stuff?
Not as far as I know, but I don't really keep track of that. I'm sure there are pirated editions someplace, but I mean, some of the short Star Wars stuff has been put online, but I don't think any of the novels, and I don't think Baen has put any of my novels online either. But I could be wrong about that.
How do you feel about ebooks in general?
I think the concept is good. I'm going to wait for the bugs to come out. Big on my list will be a reader that I can really enjoy reading from. I like the paper books. I like to be able to curl up in bed, open a book, turn a page, put a bookmark in, put it aside. And as somebody else pointed out, if you leave your paperback, it's a $6. Lose it, it's a $6 or $7 investment. If you lose your book reader, it's $30 or $50. And,
right.
And you can also read with a flashlight when there's no power, which you can't do with an ebook. But I think that may be the direction things are going. We'll see what happens. I'm not needing to get on the front wave of this thing. If it's going to work out, it'll work out, and there'll be plenty of time to get aboard.
Yeah, I did enjoy reading on a Palm, an old handspring, but at the same time, like you, that's not my preferred method of enjoying a story. But I don't know. I guess I can't really imagine there not being paper books.
It is hard to imagine. Yeah, we've had them for so long.
The technology is there, and it'd be nice to have the choice. And if you have your Palm and you use it for all your various tracking appointments and your phone numbers and all the things that you use something like that for, and you happen to have it with you, and what do you know? I just happen to have a book and I can read my book on that thing, but still have the option to read a paper book at home.
Well, someone has pointed out, I think I remember hearing of somebody who set up a tape drive or the paper tape, a magnetic computer tape, a 5-inch floppy, and the Rosetta Stone. And you say, okay, which one can you still read? And there's a point to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what is technology moves so quickly that all these old formats. Here at the library, in our little storage room, we have several very dust-covered boxes of 5.5-inch floppy disks that have never been opened and probably will never be opened again, except as a curiosity to see what one looked like. Yeah.
And that's the problem with jumping onto a technology. If it's superseded, but what do you do? If you commit wholeheartedly to that. On the other hand, like the Rosetta Stone, a paperback book or a hardcover book is always going to be readable.
Right. Well, like for the library's talking book media, we've been using cassettes for just years and years and years and years. But now there's been intense debate about what to do now. We have the technology to make an inexpensive player and inexpensive media to play on it, but which one?
Right.
And so we're still using tapes.
Yeah, and the tapes are perfectly good.
Yeah.
Is something better? Is it going to be better enough to switch to and redo everything else? Do you want to have 2 or 3 different media available and be able to support all of them at the same time? Right. It's a dilemma.
The only problem is, these new technologies supposedly aren't going to wear out, whereas the tapes do.
True.
Because of the limitations, they just get worn through constant use. Sure. The actual media breaks or snarls or gets, damaged in some way, and then you have to make a new copy.
Right.
So, yeah, you have other issues like that as well. But, yeah, there's just something about that print. We got to keep our print books. And we are out of time. We've burned through an hour here, and it's been a pleasure to see you again. It's been a pleasure to talk about the new book. And I hope you'll come by and see us again when the next project that you're on the road for comes out.
Invite me anytime. It's great to be here.
Anytime you're in town, please just come see us.
Okay, thanks.
Once again, the author is Timothy Zahn. His very new book is Star Wars Allegiance. I'm your host, Jeff Cavanaugh. Tim, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
Star Wars Allegiance is available as an audiobook in the collection of the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library. Its class ID is DB064662. Timothy Zahn has a whole slew of other books available for download as well. Just look up his name, Z-A-H-N. A fun little update: even though all non-movie material for Star Wars was deemed non-canon once Disney bought the franchise in 2012, a lot of what Zahn brought to Star Wars can still be found in new releases, most notably the character of Grand Admiral Thrawn. If you have any questions or comments about the library, or to see if you qualify for our services, visit WTBBL.org or leave us a voicemail at 206-615-0400 or toll free at 800-542-0866. This episode of Literary Notes is a production of the Washington Talking Book and Braille Library based in Seattle, Washington. I'm your producer, Nathan Ureta. Thanks for listening.